So I'm actually going to start by telling you that I'm sometimes when I speak really confident and sometimes really nervous, and today is one of those times that I'm very nervous. And I think it's just being amidst so many people that I have so much respect for. But when I'm nervous, I know what to do because it's happened before. And when I'm nervous, I think about a little boy that walked into one of our classrooms many years ago, about Om's age. And he came to class, and for 1 month, he didn't speak. We thought he couldn't speak because he just didn't say a word. Not to us, not to a friend. And yet you could see him getting increasingly engaged in the class. And one day, a month later, he raised his hand slowly and he walked to the front of the class and he spoke. And so when I feel nervous, I think of the incredible courage that this little Rafiqul took to actually speak for the first time in public. My story is a story of children, of many children over now many years, almost 22 years of working with kids. I started initially working with kids when I was 12 years old in my summer holidays. And then from the age of 18, I decided that was all that I wanted to do. Between the two organizations that I've been so humbled and privileged to work for, we've reached 20,000 kids. It's a big number in some ways, and yet it's just a drop in the ocean when we look at what needs to happen. I think my greatest lessons in giving and in generosity have come from my children, working with them from the age of 3 and 4, seeing them grow up, seeing them go to college, seeing them do things that I never thought that they would be able to do, but also seeing them grow as people, stand up, push back their age of marriage, speak out against sexual abuse, help somebody in their community. It's just been an incredible journey with kids. When I was asked to speak specifically about giving, I knew exactly that second what I wanted to say. And I was going to share one story, and then something happened yesterday, so I changed my mind yesterday. I'm going to share two quick stories. But the first one is the story that I share more often than any other story, because it really was my first true understanding of the depth of our ability as human beings to give. Latif was a 12-year-old Akanksha student when he walked into our classrooms. And he was one of those kids that walked in and he just made everything in the room better. He was handsome, he was smart, he was great at sports, he had a beautiful voice. He was the star of all of our musicals. In fact, the last Akanksha musical was about the journey of a young boy who wanted to come to Bombay and be a Bollywood actor. And through the process of 1 year of rehearsals for this musical, Latif really wanted to be that actor. And he was in college and he was juggling all of these different things. And he was just absolutely amazing. And as teachers, the one thing they always used to tell us is don't have favorites. But this kid was one of those favorite children. And then one day, a few years ago, I was driving to Pune, and just as I reached Pune, I got a call from our teacher, Nikki Didi, and she said, Shaheen, Latif is in the ICU. And I turned my car around and drove back to Bombay, and by the time I reached Bombay, Latif had passed away. And the next day, I went to his home. He lived with his elderly grandfather and his mom. He didn't have a dad. And one of his dreams had been to earn enough money so that his grandfather could stop working. And he'd actually done that 6 months before. And his grandfather took me aside and he said, Didi, last night, I knew Latif was so sick. It wasn't an ordinary illness. And so I took out from the trunk 14,000 rupees and I put it in Latif's hand and I said, Latif, promise me that you will take this money and go to a private hospital. Don't go to the government hospital. This is not like another ordinary illness. And because Latif didn't want his elderly grandfather to go back to work, he took that money, he put it back in the trunk without telling anybody. He went to a government hospital, and he died 12 hours later. And I have no idea whether the outcome would have been any different if he'd gone to a different hospital, but it totally shattered the way I thought about our ability to give. Before that, I'd always thought we all need to give a little bit. Our capacity is to be a little generous, to do small things. Latif taught me that we have an infinite capacity to give. So that's where my real sort of journey of saying, how can I push myself more, give more? That's where it began. Ever since then, I think I've just also become more aware. I think if I'd had an incident like that happen earlier on, I would have had many more stories of giving. Now I seem to find one every single day. So I just want to end by telling you the story from yesterday. Yesterday, I was told I needed to meet a funder. And so I was supposed to meet him at a Costa Coffee, went into the coffee shop, sat down. I was in another meeting. And at the table next door, there was a blind man. And I didn't realize that this was the person that I was supposed to meet. Didn't expect to be meeting a young, successful, blind donor. And we took him to a classroom, Teach for India classroom. And we walked into that school. And as I walked into government school in Mumbai, hundreds of kids like hitting each other, running around in the hallways, nothing happening in most of the classrooms. And this blind man walking with me up to the classroom, he was going to speak to the children. And we entered the Teach for India classroom, and it was just a different world. Our fifth graders sitting there waiting for this guest speaker to come in. His name's Ashish. Ashish spoke about 3 things. When he was 6, he began to lose his vision. Over the years, he lost it completely. He spoke about courage. He went to college. He stood second in college. He did his MBA. He's now working as a trader in London. He's the first blind trader in a big bank in the world. So he spoke about courage. He spoke about crying. He told the kids all the times when he'd broken down and cried. And he spoke about the power of asking for help and how he turned asking for help from feeling bad about himself to feeling this is a sign of strength to be able to stand up and ask for help. And so he came in and he gave me and he gave the kids so much by power of his example. But then I noticed something incredible because these 5th graders started asking questions. You know, Bhaiya, you said you played cricket, but how can you play cricket when you can't see? And Bhaiya, when you go to the shop and give a note, how do you know that you're giving the right note? You know, all these questions. And so there was this incredible discussion. And then spontaneously, all the 5th graders, one by one, went up to him and hugged him tighter than I've ever seen children hug anybody. And it was one of those moments we were discussing at lunch. What's the definition? I don't know the definition of love. That was a moment, though, of that kind of really, really pure love. And then I said, kids, so he's given so much. What have you received from him being here? And 2 kids said, we feel lucky. And 2 kids said, we feel happy. And 1 kid said, I'm surprised. So we said, why are you surprised? And he said, I'm surprised because I have eyes and I'm so confused and I don't know what I want to be. And many times I don't work hard. But Bhaiya doesn't have eyes. He never stopped studying. He changed his dream when he lost his eyes because he wanted to be a tennis player. And he's reached his dream. And again, I just saw in such a beautiful way the balance between what it means to give and what it means to receive, and how actually blurred the two are.